What is going on, everybody, and welcome back once again. My name is Jordan, also known as JMonster, and thank you for joining me for another 12-12 replay. This one is a 2v2 massive armies pitting the forces of Genoa and the Mongols of all people against forces from Bohemia and Saxony, determined to shut down this Mongol invasion before it can take root any further in Europe. So the hypothetical scenario behind this battle is that the Genoans, looking to protect themselves from the Mongolian Empire, have allied themselves with the Mongols, and the Saxons and the Bohemians, not wanting the presence of the fearsome golden horde of the Mongols on European soil, have now banded together to take the fight to Genoa and their newfound allies. Very bloody, very chaotic, and a lot of really excellent tactical maneuvering that goes on in this battle. I think you guys are really going to have a good time with it. So without any further ado, let's jump right in to the army compositions, then we can get into the battle itself. Hope you guys enjoy it. Alright, so as is tradition, we're going to take a look at the blue team's army composition before we pass on over to the red. Just a quick note, though. One of the things that I consistently keep hearing is that I talk a little bit too fast, so I'm going to try and slow it down just a little bit. And if that's a style that you guys prefer, then that's what we could adopt moving forward. Me, personally, I like the really rapid-fire, like, Spanish football announcer sort of style, like really rapid-fire, kind of on point. But I understand that could be a little bit harder to follow along for some people, especially if your native language isn't English, so I definitely sympathize. So if that's something that people would like to see, and I can get kind of a majority opinion on that, then I will start to slow it down. I'll talk a little bit more like an even kind of measure as what I'm doing right now. But in any case, I digress. Let's get into the army compositions. The first army we're going to look at today is the Ilkhanate. This is one of the Mongol factions. He's got 1 unit of heavy lancers and 2 units of these guys. These are the Tarkan. And honestly, this is a very unique armor. They almost look like proto-spacemen. Not something that you see outside of the Mongol factions, and I actually really, really like it. But of course, he's got 2 units in there. Tier 3 melee cav. Very, very deadly. Definitely befitting the Mongol equestrian legacy. He's also got a unit here of Tactic Levy Spearmen, just a Tier 1 heavy or Levy Spear unit, medium strength, I believe. Just, you know, they're here to support the cavalry, do what they do best, that being slaughtering horsemen. He's also got, I believe, 2 units of the light horse archers right here, 1 and 2, and a unit of heavy horse archers. Because of course, what Mongol army is complete without a strong contingent of horse archers? Over here we have a unit of war elephants. I think this is the first time... Actually, no, that's not true. Not the first time we've had elephants, but I did, in the last episode we had elephants, kind of neglect to spend any time on them. So consider this as recompense for my past sins. We'll definitely make sure we get in on some elephant action this time around. He's got 1 unit of the Bagatut Guard, and I really like these guys. They're very, very Eastern looking. They almost look like some of the Slavic faction bodyguards with that war mask and those domed kind of onion helmets, which you see a very similar shape in a lot of Russian architecture. So I have to wonder if it's not borrowed from the Mongols or maybe the other way around. I don't know. Possible subject for research in the future. If you guys know by any means, please enlighten me, because it's all over this army, and I kind of need to know. We got a unit here of Fire Lance Infantry, and it's pretty straightforward what these guys are about. They've got rockets attached to the end of spears, which is just the coolest thing ever. So I'm sure we'll see some interesting action from these guys later in the battle. We've also got some late period Persian cavalry. These guys are medium cavalry unit, Tier 3, very, very deadly, pretty good on the charge. They're a little bit like medium cavalry. They definitely are a lot lighter than some of the other horsemen in the army, but being a Tier 3 unit, I'm sure they will do very well for themselves. He's also brought a few units, I believe 3 to 4 units of Turco-Mongol footmen. These guys are heavy melee infantry, Tier 3, very, very scary looking. We've got a lot of really nasty looking weapons in there. I wonder, in fact, if these guys are AP or not, which would make them a very deadly foe to face on the battlefield. The main body of the Mongol army, however, consists of Tabgur, a medium melee infantry. These guys are just everywhere. There's like 11 infantry. There's an obscene amount of these guys on the battlefield. So clearly the Mongols are going to be heavily relying on these guys and using their elites to kind of shore up any gaps in the line where the Tabgur begin to fail. So a lot of them in the army as well. We've also got, I believe, 2 to 3 units of Persian foot soldiers, late period, and again those domed helmets. And in fact, they've got little flags on the end of them, so it almost looks like something you would buy in like a theme park. I don't know. It's very funny to me. I have to move on now before I start to giggle at them. But yeah, Tier 3, obviously very good at holding a line, being heavy Tier 3 spearmen. Their range contingent consists of a large number of heavy archers. We've got some Persian archers here. There's actually some Turkic archers in the back. It's kind of this neat little checkerboard formation, okay? So they've got Turkic archers, Persian foot archers, Persian heavy archers, and again, Turkic archers, foot archers, heavy archers. So it's this interesting little checkerboard formation, which feels deliberate. Various archers here have different strengths. They could just be using them to potentially make up for any weaknesses that some of these units have. So if they begin to focus on some of the more heavily armored archers, they'll be able to give the Persian foot archers a little bit of a break, because as you can see, they're a lot more lightly armored. So yeah, potentially part of a strategy. Either way, it kind of looks cool. Moving on now to his ally, these are the Genoese, and as you would expect from a European faction, they have a ton of heavy infantry. They've got some dismounted Genoese nobles right here, alongside some dismounted Zaphones, who are a little bit of an anomalous unit. They are tier 3 medium melee infantry, quite heavily armored if you look at them, but their mounted contingents of Zaphones are actually a tier 2 light cavalry unit. That's a little bit confusing. We have some Pavis, of course, because everybody loves the Pavis. Very hard to beat these guys at range. The only thing that I think could really beat them is other Pavis and a cavalry charge. These guys have, it appears to me that they have quite weak morale, so if they get charged by cavalry, they'll start to run away quite quickly. More dismounted Zaphones, more Pavi crossbows, and here are the mounted contingents. Again, you see, look at this. Light melee cavalry, tier 2, yet their dismounted components are apparently so much more powerful and much more expensive. In back we have some, I think I'm saying this right, the CH in Italian is a hard K, Piquetti, but if you guys know better, by all means let me know and correct me in that level. But yeah, Piquetti, medium light, or medium pike infantry, wow, it's hard to talk about that, and of course tier 3. Spadaccini, because everybody loves the Spadaccini when they're playing as the Italian factions. Really nice defensive infantry, can deal a lot of damage in melee with those beautiful long swords that they have. Also quite defensible with their large Pavis. Moving on now, we have a unit of General's Bodyguard, tier 3 shock cavalry. It's pretty obvious that these guys are about looking very sexy in that red Genoese cross. You guys look like they're ready to march off to the Holy Land, Deus Vult, and so forth. More Spadaccini, we have some Berovieri, which I'm not too sure what that means. But yes, they are a medium tier 1 infantry. Quite lightly armored, but it appears that they have like axes and maces, so they may be useful for their armor-piercing components. So that's possibly a really nice addition to the army. We've also got a huge line here of Lancieri, who are all formed up and ready to go to battle. Behind them, we have 3 units of the foot condottieri. These guys are actually really interesting and really important to Italian history, and I think about the 14th century. Or up to about the 14th century. They were used as mercenary companies by not only the Italian city-states, but by the papacy themselves to wage war, mostly against each other, but occasionally, they found some foreign enemies to beat up. But in case the word condottieri actually means contract, and later became mercenary captain. I think it was later just generalized to mean just mercenaries in general. So I don't really know what the like Italian noun for that would be, or like the singular would be, but the singular form of condottieri is usually associated with the leader of a mercenary company or with that company itself. They have some more archers here, some arcieri, heavy archers. Look at these guys. Not going to be easy to beat those guys in a skirmish fight. Very heavily armored. And he's also got a large number of condottieri, a huge number, in fact. He's got like 4 units of these guys. Tier 3 shock cavalry, very deadly on the charge and in melee. And in prolonged melee, these guys are absolute monsters as well, as befits a heavily armored regiment of horsemen. But that basically does it for the blue team. Let's pass on now to the red team. Starting from the north end, moving south, we have the army of Saxony. He's got a lot of heavy cavalry, and honestly, he's really going to need it. We've seen just how many of the condottieri that are arranged on the blue team's left flank. So these Saxon Ritter are going to come into play in a really big, important role. But in any case, I believe he's got 5 units of the tier 3 late period Saxon Ritter, who are very deadly. I think more than a match. Well, definitely a match for the foot condottieri. He's also got a single unit of high periods. These are tier 2 Saxon Ritter. They've got these glorious crests. Honestly, you'd think that these would provide a lot of wind resistance charging into combat, potentially just rip the helmet right off your head. But I don't know, they seem to like it, and it's everywhere, so maybe it was actually a functional design. In any case, moving on, he's got 1 unit of, actually 2 units, I believe, 1 here and then 1 deployed elsewhere in the army of the, I don't know if I'm saying this right, Jensleute, heavy melee cavalry. pretty light comparatively to their Saxon Ritter counterparts. These guys are going to be really useful for penetrating through infantry formations to get to the crunchy skirmisher center. But in any case, behind them, backing up his cavalry, he's got a large unit of Landwehr. And we've seen these guys in some previous battles, and they can do a ton of work. I think these are like a regular kind of soldiery. They're not nobles; they're just kind of drawn from the general populace, but they are trained. I think the current German army has a very similar name, like Landwehr, something like that. I'm not too sure what Wehr means, but it sounds like war, so it could just mean soldier or something close to that. But in any case, moving on, he's got a large number of Aussöldner from both Tier 2 and Tier 3. So his back line here consists of a large period of or a large group rather, of late period Aussöldner footmen. And in front of them, he's got the Tier 2 version from the high period. And it appears to me that they also have javelins or something that they can throw into combat before they get stuck in, making these guys really good shock troops. So a double line of them is a very formidable force. Sandwiched in between the two units of Aussöldner, he's got some Arquebussenschütze, which I assume comes from the French arquebusier, which it would appear to be the case. It's like a kind of proto-firearm. It's really like it's a stick. It's like a hand cannon, essentially. You just point them at the enemy en masse in their general direction and hope it scares them enough that it makes them run away. Moving on now, he's got another unit of Jensleute. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. But he's also got a large number of the Pavisburgmannen. These guys are Tier 3 spear infantry, very, very adept at holding a line, and damn, do they look freaking cool. Look at this guy right here. I love that helmet. I would love to know what kind of period that's from. That, like, it's a very, very sharp kind of gorget, or I'm not entirely sure what you would call that, but it looks really cool, very imposing. In front of them, he's got some Hanseatic infantry, and honestly, I love these guys. The Hanseatic League was like a bunch of townships, essentially, in northern Germany, that somehow, by working together, came to dominate trade in the Baltic for nigh on 3 centuries. So very, very cool to see these guys on the battlefield, and very versatile as well. You can see they're like a medium infantry unit. They've got really nice shields, meaning that they can probably stand up to a missile bombardment. Not nearly as well as the Pavis, but they can definitely do it. And of course, you can use them in melee once they run out of ammunition from their crossbows, which are always very deadly. So I love seeing these guys. Are kind of one of my favorite units, just given how versatile they are. Moving on now, we have the Kingdom of Bohemia. And he's got a little bit of a lower tier army, it would appear. A lot of early period Tier 1 sergeants, which really could be a problem for them facing some of the Mongols. They've got a lot of like Tier 2 Tabagur, which I think will be more than capable of cutting down these much lighter sergeants. But in any case, he's got a very long line here of them all the way down, you can see. He's also got behind them some macemen, and this is really cool to see. The macemen can do a ton of damage to other infantry units, so I think that his front line is going to be mostly for wearing down the Mongolian Tabgur and then applying his macemen where they are needed, similar to what I think the Mongolians are going to be doing for their own strategy. So it's good to see that they'll kind of be playing the same kind of game, and we'll just have to see who can play it better, however. In any case, moving on, he's got some late period halberdiers, Tier 3 medium polearm infantry. These guys are so scary. They do so much damage from the front. Even if you surround them, they can still really cut their way out. I think they've also got like a square formation, so these guys are super flexible. The only real weakness they have is, of course, rear charges, as any infantry unit does, but they're also quite vulnerable to armor-piercing missile fire, as of course they lack shields to block any of that sort of thing. He's also got some Tier 2 shock cavalry here. We got some Bohemian Knights from the high period. Very, very scary shock cavalry, although I think they might really struggle against some of the more powerful Tier 3 shock cavalry on the part of the Mongols. He's also got some Pavisier spearmen. You can see them mixed in here with another unit of macemen. It's like a Tier 2 spear units. Yeah, there you go, Tier 2 medium spear infantry unit. Very good at holding the line, and of course, very, very good at standing up to prolonged missile fire. Behind them, he's got the Bohemian King, who is in a Tier 3 shock cavalry unit, and look at them. Very, very scary. Definitely want to be careful, however, about how you apply these guys in the battle, because obviously your general is extremely important in Attila. He's also got some mounted sergeants, a Tier 1 medium cavalry unit, probably either a throwaway or support unit, or will be useful for running down some of the archers. A basically it, I think, for most of his infantry. Over on the end here, he's got 3 units of Tier 3 Bohemian Knights from the late period, alongside another unit of mounted sergeants. So it seems like a very versatile force, although I really fear for the longevity of the Bohemian warriors in close combat against the Mongols. All that Tier 1 infantry could really play against him. He's got a large contingent of archers, however. Very, very powerful archers. Some Tier 3 bow infantry. You got some archer sergeants from the late period. You get more archer sergeants. And some patrol spearmen. Some light infantry here, probably to fend off any cavalry charges from the front that may try to surprise his skirmish line. And of course, we've got some Hussite Pavi crossbows. Very good in a missile fight. Of course, being Pavi crossbows, they can stand up quite a lot. Just gotta be careful about getting them charged by cavalry. Definitely the vulnerability of a lot of the Pavi units I've seen is that they have quite weak morale. So if you can inflict a lot of shock damage on them, then you can get them to rout very, very quickly. But that's basically it for the army compositions. Let's go ahead and let's jump right into the battle. I hope you guys enjoy. Alright, so there's a little bit of preliminary maneuvering going on right now, which gives us a little bit of time to take a look at some of the formations. If you look here, the Mongolians have really stacked their right wing with a ton of infantry. You can see a lot of their tabagir there alongside their Persian foot soldiers. And it may be that the Mongolians are planning to be very aggressive in this battle. They may even advance forward and try and take the Bohemians on in close combat. That would be a very tough fight for them, but I think something that they could do, if they could shut down the cavalry and then bring their elephants around into the rear and really leverage the kind of shock value of the units that they have available to them. If you see somebody doing this, there's a very good chance that if they're not doing it in response to you, like say you're deploying your elites on the wing and they're just going to reply consequently with some elites of their own, if someone is doing this, they may be trying to use an oblique formation against you, which the basic principle of which is that you smash the enemy wing and then you use all the strength that you have gathered on there to roll up the rest of your line. So it's very important that the rest of the army hold while your army does this, but it's definitely a very aggressive deployment, I think, on the part of the Mongolians. It'd be great to see some really aggressive play like that. Moving on over to the other side, and this is really big, and the Mongolians are responding to this, and we'll get into that in just a moment. But the Saxons have deployed all of their heavy cavalry, almost all of it, in fact, on their, this is their right wing. It's hard to tell, but it's spread out like this when it's like north to south instead of normally. But here in the north, the Saxons have deployed a large number of the heavy cavalry. More than enough, I think, to smash through the 5 battalions of foot condottieri who are present over there opposite the battlefield. So this presents a serious menace to the flank of the enemy, of the blue team's army, and the Mongolians are, of course, responding to this. You can see a lot of their horse archers being stationed over here on this wing, and I think the plan is going to be, and because of the way that large battles work, you are very much cut off. Your armies can very easily spread from horizon to horizon, from border to border, not really allowing a lot of room for flanking movements. So harassment like this, especially early on, becomes very, very important. And I think the Mongolians are going to use that to great effect. If they can weaken this flank enough that they can assault it, or if they can sucker some of these units out of position, and horse archers are great for doing that, then they may be able to get around the enemy formation, even with their horse archers. If they could just manage to drive these Saxons back enough, putting the fear of God in them, essentially, with their horse archers, they will be able to do a lot of damage. You gotta appreciate just how brave these light horse archers are. They really want to draw those Saxons into a fight. The Saxons, of course, responding in kind. You don't want to just sit there and get shot. So the conventional wisdom is to move forward and try and attack your assailants. But these heavily armored cavalrymen are not going to be able to keep pace with the light horse archers and indeed the heavy horse archers as well. Yeah, the Saxons are really in a bit of a bind here. I think what we're going to start seeing in a few moments, and indeed we are seeing it right now, is that these Saxons will move over some skirmishers in response to this, and defend those skirmishers not only with the presence of their cavalry, but also with some Landwehr who are stationed on this wing as well. And that's going to really put, I think, a wrench in the plan of these horse archers, because they're not going to be able to harass this formation with impunity, given the presence of those skirmishers. So a great move, very conventional, very yeah, just generally an intelligent deployment on the part of the Saxon player, although I think he might be getting a little bit too far forward here with the Saxon Ritter, and you can see a little bit of damage being dealt to them, some early light casualties, but every knight dead is a loss that is dearly felt. Moving over here, let's take a look at the deployment of the Mongols. Bohemians have kind of they're quite lightly defended on this wing, at least on the farthest extremity. So if the Mongols were to move in there in force, they could potentially be able to shut them down, although the Bohemians might be anticipating this given the presence of all of this heavy cavalry here. This could be, I think, a little bit of a bait to try and draw the Mongolians in. It doesn't look like they're taking it. Instead, they're just kind of moving their footmen forward, looking to decrease the distance between them and the main battle line of the Bohemians. And honestly, that's a fight that they will win. Why commit over here where the Bohemian Knights are going to be waiting for you when you can just go forward, mash up their infantry line, and destroy them that way? And then you can bring your cavalry around on the wings and really force an engagement with those spearmen and those elephants that they have present there that could potentially see the end of these late period Bohemian Knights who are gathered on that wing. So a good move on the part of the Mongolians for sure. Out front, though, the skirmishing just continuing. These heavy archers, I think they're going to do really well against some of these units. There are definitely weaker portions of the army. Those Persian foot archers, for example, they are tier 3, but they are quite lightly armored. So I think if those heavy bowmen can really get some early shots off here, really begin to whittle down the numbers of these skirmishers, then they can come out on top in a skirmish fight. Despite the fact that they have the lower numbers, I think they've only got about 4 or 5 units of bowmen stationed right there. They've also got some pavis as well, and the Mongolians definitely have the advantage in terms of number, but yeah, I think the Bohemians have the quality advantage. Oh, looks like those Persian cavalry thinking about maybe advancing to take these guys on. It looks like the Bohemian Knights were possibly going to be menacing that front line. The Mongolians weren't having it, though, moving in with their Persian warriors and driving the Bohemian Knights back. Oh, wow. Looks like their ally, Genoa, is coming in with some of his Zafones, looking to get into those archer units, but the Bohemians already prepared, moving in with some of their Bohemian Knights. But this does open a significant gap in the defenses here for the Bohemian player. If those cavalry come back, they would be able to, I think, to get into this area and begin to run down some of the skirmishers. But the Bohemians, I think, sensing the weakness in their defense, is now going to fill that gap and move up with the rest of their sergeants. Oh man, those poor Zafones really getting driven back by the combined arms of those Bohemian Knights and the Patchelek Spearmen, driving these guys back across the battlefield into a trap set by the Dienstleute, who are going to be able to charge in there and shut down these poor Zafones, who are really, really struggling at this point. The Genie is trying to rush in some reinforcements, trying to save that one unit of light cavalry, but I think it might be a little bit too late for them. They're quite heavily reduced at this point, and soon to be routed off the battlefield. One final glorious charge here into the Pavi crossbows. Some early easy casualties, but I don't think these guys are going to be able to stick around for too long. Those Patcheleks, just relentless, coming in behind the Zafones, is going to be able to rout them off the battlefield very, very quickly. So yeah, a little bit of early cavalry action there, but I think the red team definitely came off on top in this particular engagement. They showed a lot of really good teamwork here in trapping those Zafones, and they managed to minimize the damage to their skirmish units while shutting down a potentially very dangerous lighter cavalry unit. The Genie is, of course, now going to be obliged to respond in kind, trying to move forward with some of their Pavi crossbows, but unfortunately, those victorious Bohemian Knights are going to be able to charge in, catching them, I think, a little bit unawares. These dismounted Zafones just not able to get in there and support the archers before it's too late. They are now trying to move forward and drive these guys back, with Bohemian Knights well clear of that engagement, going to be able to fall back. Over here, these cavalry still just kind of waiting around. The Mongolians are a little bit busy elsewhere, so I think the Hanseatic infantry are going to begin to move forward here, and hopefully they move up their cavalry and their infantry to support these guys. There is a opportunity here to get some early harass off of the foot condottieri. The Genoese are probably quite busy elsewhere, especially in the center there, with their Zafones being taken out, and they are beginning to move forward and move towards the Saxon center, but yeah, they're definitely going to have to be careful. Oh, look at this. Got some Arquebussenschütze beginning to move their way in, probably to begin to harass this heavy infantry line. This is a very tempting target for armor-piercing missiles such as the arquebus units. And I think if the Genies aren't careful here, their center could suffer a lot of irreparable damage. They're very thin right here, and if the Saxons manage to whittle them down enough, they will be able to punch through, bisect this force, and begin to surround. The Genies aren't having it though. Those archery beginning to open up upon these octopus ships who are going to get a nice volley off. Look at that. Into the front of those Zaphones. Not really claiming anybody this time. Oh no, never mind. There it is. Look at that. 15, over 15 now going down in that first volley. That's really devastating. The Genies have to respond to that. There's nothing that they can do if they just sit there. Over on this end, looks like the Bohemians have really reinforced their forces here, possibly looking to smash that Mongolian. This would be their right wing, smash their way through, and potentially begin to surround them. If we just slow it down a little bit here, you can look. They're beginning to drive back the Mongolians, who have fallen back with all of their cavalry, leaving the rest of their infantry body very exposed. There's a couple units of low-tier spearmen here between the Bohemians and the back lines of the Mongolians. So if they're not careful, they could end up in a lot of trouble. I think now would be a really good time for those Saxon Raider to begin to move forward. The Condottieri have been pulled off here. There's only 2 units now beginning to guard the flank, and it looks like that's what they're doing. Let's go ahead and let's see how that works out for them. Yeah, really nice coordination here. At the same time, the Bohemians are presenting a serious menace on the other end of the battlefield. The Saxons now beginning to move forward with their very powerful units of shock cavalry. And in fact, they're backing up that push with some Landwehr, so they will be able to consolidate their gains there with a very healthy infantry force. Yeah, they're, I think, really going to keep those Condottieri busy in many different places. The Genies are going to struggle against the Saxons and against the coordination that this team really seems to bring to the table. Over on this end, the staring contest continues, but the Tazik Levy now under fire a little bit from some of the Bohemian archers, using their fiery ammunition to weaken the morale of these Tazik levies, probably in anticipation for an assault, and indeed that is what's happening right now. You can see some of these spear sergeants moving forward. Oh, let's slow this down just a little bit. Big charge coming in here from these spear sergeants. Are these the Bohemians running over their own men? You can see a lot of these poor spear sergeants just being bowled over. A little bit disorganized. Probably not the best engagement for the Bohemian Knights, and indeed for the spears. They do have some tier 3 infantry in the back here, which they could use to great effect. They could smash apart these 2 levy spearmen units, crush them, and still have some spearmen left to assist their cavalry in pushing against not only the heavy lancers, but the elephants that are present in the back as well. So I think that's a little bit of a stumble there, possibly at the finish line, by the Bohemians, but they've kind of sorted things out a little bit. I think they might be moving forward with the Halberdiers, realizing the opportunity that has presented itself with this very weak flank on the part of the Mongols. Well, let's go ahead and let's speed it up. Looks like the cavalry engagement has begun. The Saxons moving in to take on the foot Condottieri. The rest of them, I think, at least 1 unit has been pulled in to assist. There's 3 units of the 5 foot Condottieri who are stationed over here trying to hold back this massive tide of Saxons as they push forward. A lot of tier 3 cavalry smashing each other apart right now, but these Landwehr are going to be the decisive factor in this engagement. They are armor piercing, and that is huge against the heavily armored cavalry units who rely mostly on their armor to keep themselves alive. There's not a lot of mobility that comes with the heavy cavalry. There is some, but they're nowhere near as fast as some of the horse archers. I think the Mongolians realize exactly what's happening here, just the kind of trouble that their Genoese ally is in. So they're now moving forward with some of their light horse archers looking potentially to get some flanking shots here, maybe trying to avoid hitting their ally as much as possible, who's really in a bad way. Yeah, their ally doesn't like that engagement. He's going to fall back with his foot Condottieri, but those Saxon knights are right there with them, and his Condottieri are going to suffer a lot of casualties in that retreat. Yeah, I think that was definitely a mistake that's really weakened their position here. You can see the morale very weak for these 2 units of Condottieri, and there's some breaking now that's beginning to happen underneath the weight of that Saxon push. 2 very important units of Condottieri just kind of almost wasted. There was really no support for them here. They just kind of got run over. Mongolians doing now the best that they can to try and drive back these Saxons. Saxons are going to have to be really careful here. The presence of these foot archers on this southern part of the battlefield is a game changer. If they can kite these Saxon horsemen around long enough, they will not only be able to delay them from getting into the back of their ally, but they'll be able to deal a lot of damage in return. These guys have a ton of ammunition, and they're super fast, so they are definitely a hard counter if micro-dwell to heavy cavalry. Over here we're seeing a little bit of a melee engagement. The Genie is moving forward very disorganized, and somehow These Hanseatic infantry have managed to penetrate behind the Genoese lines and are now kind of stuck in combat against some Zafones. It turns out to be a bit of a mistake that these Hanseatic infantry are very exposed in the back here, able to be easily surrounded and dealt with by the Genoese, who are responding quite rapidly. But elsewhere, very, very disorganized charge. We got some Picheri here, beating back some of the sergeants alongside. Or no, trying to take on the sergeants and who are backed up by some halberdiers. These Picheri very isolated. Look at this. Very easily to surround this unit, and a pike unit depends on its formation to survive in melee. So this is really not the ideal position for them to be in, with their back exposed to the enemy skirmishers and the rest of the enemy army. Yeah, the Genoese are very scattered, a little bit disorganized at this point, and I think the Saxons are going to take full advantage of that fact. Ausoldna really pushing the Berovieri quite hard. These tier 1 infantry units not going to be able to stand up to these tier 2 backed up by tier 3 units. It's just not going to happen. The Genoese really need to be careful. They are winning in certain places against the Ausoldna. I think this is only the tier 2 units with their foot condottieri, which is to be expected. The condottieri are a counter to lighter infantry units like this, especially from the front. Over on this end, though, the Genoese in a lot of trouble. It's slowed down just a little bit here. You can see that they've actually begun to surround the Genoese formation. Let's take a look on the tactical map here. In fact, on both sides. Oh, yeah, okay, so there's a surround going on, but I want to get a shot of the elephants. Looks like the elephants are in combat here against some spearmen, some halberdiers, in fact, some late period halberdiers. You can see these elephants really struggling. It looks like they are routing, in fact. That is so sad. A number of the elephants appear to have already fallen on the battlefield. They aren't shattered, though, so we may see them reform. Halberdier is going to consolidate those gains. Oh, another elephant going down. Oh, poor guys. There goes Dumbo's mom. Halberdier is now moving forward, trying to cut down as many of the elephants as possible. They're actually kind of being held in place by some early sergeants who are broken. 58 of them now running in fear from those war elephants. I guess that's what you've got to be careful with when you get your cavalry entangled with an elephant unit. More of these elephants going down. If those fire arrows keep coming, we may not see these guys reform before they run off the battlefield. Elsewhere, though, it seems like things are kind of going okay for the Mongolians, but the presence of halberdiers and spearmen now on their flank after those elephants have been broken could turn this engagement around. But yes, as I was saying, let's take a look at the tactical map here. You can see that the Saxons have really begun to wrap around the infantry formation of the Genoese, who are they're just being outmaneuvered at this point. There's nowhere that they can go. What they should be doing with these 4 units of Lancieri is falling back here and just trying to form. It's shameful. Nobody likes to form a box formation, but at this point, that is, I think, the most tactically prudent thing to do. Elsewhere, their infantry is really being beaten back, aside from their halberdiers, who are holding their own. But these Saxons, I think, are going to be able to slowly overwhelm these guys, and especially with this attack now coming in from the rear, they're going to turn this engagement around in favor of their forces. Well, it looks like he is trying to form his Lancieri up into a bit of a wall, trying to get them away from those Landwehr and form a continuous wall. But it looks like there's a lot of, oh, I see what he's doing. It's kind of like a last stand sort of thing. As cool as this is, as cool as it is to see this square formation, they will last for a little while. And they are in menace that has to be dealt with, but I think it'd be better if you form them up into lines. Elsewhere, it seems like the Saxon cavalry is really being used ineffectively. A lot of them, they're chasing down horse archers, light horse archers, in fact. They are not going to catch those guys, and the result is going to be a lot of dead heavy horsemen. The Saxons elsewhere moving in with some more of their heavy ritter, possibly trying to get into the rear of the rest of the army. It's up to the Mongolians at this point. The Genoese have opted to be very, very static, very, very passive, I think, by forming up into those squares. So it's down to the Mongolians to drive back the Saxon cavalry. If they can get into the back of the Mongolians or into the Genoese, this battle could end very, very quickly. We have the Jensleute not in a great position. It looks like they're charging into the back of a general's bodyguard, but they were also entangled with some light horse archers, dealing light casualties to the horse archer unit. But the Jensleute, not liking this engagement, are going to begin to rout as the Genoese player realizes what is happening. He's going to move his general's bodyguard in to take on the Jensleute. Surrounded, outnumbered, and being shot at with missiles. I don't think these guys are going to last too long. You can see them beginning to waver, and there you go. The breaking has begun. Maybe they'll reform, maybe we'll see some more from them, but I don't think so. But with the breaking of those Jensleute, it has kind of exposed the Saxon flank, rather, to a charge from that general's bodyguard unit. That is exactly what they are in the process of doing. The Saxon Ritter getting a little bit caught out. The rest of them getting trapped, in fact, by that General's Bodyguard unit and the Lancieri. So a really nice move here on the part of the Genoese, really shutting down the Saxons. These two units of cavalry here are going to really suffer quite badly. And this is going to force him now to commit his general. This is Duke's Heerschild, late period bodyguard, and they're quite expensive, very, very powerful, but they're now going to have to commit to this fight, try and save the cavalry, but at the same time they're being shot from the rear by light horse archers. So this very effective surround movement on the part of the Saxons, I think, is going to start to play against them. Over here, the Bohemians doing their best. You can see the halberds really pushing hard against these cavalry units. I think this is the heavy lancers. Indeed it is. They could find themselves routed very quickly, but these halberdiers maybe getting a little bit too overeager, charging into battle against two other Tier 3 cavalry units. Not a fight those guys are going to win. He may just be trying to occupy them long enough with his halberdiers to move in with his archer sergeants and begin to pepper these guys with arrows, but I don't think that exchange is going to be worth it. So I've also got a unit here of spear sergeants, just a tier 1 spear unit moving in to the rear, but unfortunately those halberdiers, not liking that fight, are going to have to flee from that engagement, leaving these archer sergeants very exposed. And it looks like a little bit of a miss micro here on the part of the Bohemians, getting these guys a little bit too close to that cavalry, and then cavalry is going to get in there and really punish them for it. Over here, though, there's some breaking on both sides, but the Genoese, I think, are definitely in the worst position. The Zavonis are doing okay here. They are moving in some reinforcements Spadaccini to drive back the Ausoldner, but elsewhere on the battlefield you can see very important unit here, a Footcondottieri alongside some Spadaccini being surrounded. And these guys are already shaken. Potentially the Genoese have lost their general at this point, and that I think would be a very big disaster for them. In the back here, oh man, these poor Saxon riders just getting run down, destroyed by those light horse archers. And elsewhere, though, they've managed to bring their Landwehr into a unit of Lancieri, so they're going to win that fight. But that once proud Saxon heavy cavalry army has just been devastated. Look at this. They're just strewn all about the field. Really unfortunate to see. They did great against the Footcondottieri. They drove them back really quickly and managed to get superiority on this wing. But the arrival, rather, of these Mongolian horse archers, I think, is going to really start to turn that around. Oh, he's really giving it to that bodyguard. If the Saxons lose their bodyguard, they're going to lose a huge part of their advantage, and I think that is the end of the bodyguard right there. Look at this. They are already wavering down to just 4. I think Duke Heerschild has already been gunned down on the battlefield by those Mongolians. So that's a really big problem. Well, almost had them there, but he's just not going to be able to run them down with heavy cavalry. That's not an effective use of his cavalry, and indeed it has wasted a lot of time and a lot of very important units. So I think possibly the Genoese may start to pull it back a little bit with the aid of their Mongolian ally. Although their infantry force, I think, is going to be completely and utterly smashed by the time the Mongolians are able to mount an effective response to the Saxon push. These 3 units of Landwehr just pushed through those poor Lancieri. They are now shattered. They're going to be free to move in and surround these dismounted Genoese nobles here. Yeah, all along the line, the Genoese are really suffering, except in certain places where it's a little bit more even, especially with these Spadaccini right here against Ausoldner. Looks like some shattering just happened. Oh wow, some Spadaccini. 72 of them now fleeing from the battlefield. Really bad news for Genoa. Over here, the rest of these Zafoni is really exposed. Got some Ausoldner there that's moving in to attack them on the flank, and there's also some Pavi crossbows there who could do a lot of damage to them. Oh, okay, I want to see what these guys are up to. We've got some Fire Lance infantry moving in to support the Mongolian main battle line, who's really struggling, I think, against the Bohemians, which is a little bit surprising to me. They definitely have the quality of troops to stand up to the Bohemians, but I guess the Bohemians have chosen their fights well. You can see these late period halberdiers here back in the unit of sergeants really pushing through those Tabagur who are having a hard time. A little bit of a miss micro. I think this Fire Lance got a little bit too close to that unit of sergeants and are going to get themselves locked in melee, which is not where you want your Fire Lances to be. That's not what they're for. I wonder what these guys are up to. Let's go ahead and let's fast forward just a little bit. I gotta know. I gots to know. Oh, forming up on the flank All the Bohemians being a little bit too sluggish here. I don't know if they see this Fire Lance infantry in the chaos of battle forming up in the rear of one of their infantry blobs. This is really bad. Look at this. Those Persian foot soldiers now have managed to break these guys. Are they charging into melee? Oh, I sincerely hope not. Oh, wow. Point blank. Look at this. Into the Pagula Spearmen, absolutely devastating them and making them run off the battlefield. Wow, that is a ballsy maneuver. I really, really enjoyed that. And that's going to put most, I think, of these, not the Serbians, the Bohemians to flight. And yeah, they really didn't like that. These guys reformed very, very quickly, but it appears that the Fire Lance infantry very effective at breaking enemy morale. They've got a lot of targets that they could pick here, so this is definitely a good area for them to be in. It looks like we had some halberdiers here trying to reform, get into that fight to support the early period sergeants and the other unit of halberdiers, but they kind of just ran away at the first sign of danger. They are going to reform, but their morale is so feeble that I don't think we're going to see too much from them. Yeah, the Mongolians now managing to mount an effective response to the Bohemians. They managed to break a significant portion of their units, largely thanks to those Fire Lance infantry. They're now moving in with some really cool infantry formations that are designed for pushing through forces and breaking lines, which is not a fun thing for units to have to undergo. It's very devastating to their morale. So the Mongolians really want this fight finished, and they want it finished fast, because they're going to have to deal with a very healthy force of infantry on the part of the Saxons. Let's go ahead. Let's fast forward a little bit here. The Saxons, I think, really need to mobilize their forces and get them working against these Pavi crossbows and just begin to sweep through here and rout what remains of the Genoese. I don't think the Genoese have their general. I don't think they have much, in fact. So the Saxons are really going to have to leverage their advantage in numerous infantry while they still have it. These artillery are just pounding these guys. There's not a whole lot that they can do about it, just sitting there out in the field. Moving on over this way, you can see the sergeants here and the halberdiers mounting a very spirited defense against a large blob of Persian foot soldiers. They've managed to surround them, which is a very effective way of dealing with very powerful infantry. If you can surround enemies, you can deal a ton of casualties to them, even with lower tier infantry. But I don't know how long these guys are going to be able to stick around. There's so many Mongolians in the area, and there's just not enough of their friendly brothers here to try and tie down flanking movements and such, that these guys are really struggling in terms of morale. Over on this end, things are really quiet. It looks like everyone here is just shell-shocked and doesn't quite know what to do with themselves. These Tarkan could really be doing a lot of good over here in shattering these units. The Mongolians are moving in with the unit of with their general's bodyguard, the Baghatut Guard, shattering a couple units from the sergeants, or from the Bohemians rather, and beginning to turn this engagement around in favor of their forces. We've seen some more action from the Fire Lance infantry around here. I saw some gunshots going off. Yeah, definitely, there they are. Routing a unit of halberdiers. These Fire Lance infantry have really proved to be a very effective force in the army. And looks like the Saxons now beginning to move forward. They are taking on the Lancieri over here, so they're just kind of wiping out what remains of the Genoese. But I don't know how well they're going to do against the Mongolians. It's quite a close battle at this point, although the Mongolians just have so many troops left and so much heavy cavalry that really I don't see what they can do. Some of these horse archers still have really healthy numbers and a lot of ammunition. So the Mongolians appear to just be kind of biding their time, and the Saxons are just kind of slowly forming a battle line. These Landwehr chasing down some Pavi crossbows. Yeah, very unfortunate. The Saxons pushed through, although I think at a greater cost than what was really needed. The Genoese managed to put up a great last stand, so there's not too much I think that the Saxons can do at this point. And it appears to me that they've just kind of given up a little bit. Well, let's fast forward and see what they do. Well, somebody's running. And there's some foot condottieri who have reformed in behind their lines and can pose a very big problem to what remains of the Saxon infantry. The Saxons opting now to just kind of move away from that fight, get themselves formed up, and potentially begin to move in against the Mongols. But I don't know how much they're feeling that engagement. They've really got no allies left, and it looks like they kind of just gave up there, which is very unfortunate to see. So that is going to be a very close defeat for them, and the victory is in fact going to go to to the Mongols, who definitely had the advantage in that fight. So it looks like the Saxons just kind of gave up a little bit, lost all of their cavalry, and unfortunately that was the end for them. So unfortunately, it looks like we had a little bit of a desync there at the end. Although the result is basically what you would expect given the large number of Mongolians still left on the battlefield. So thankfully Blood Magpie was kind enough to supply me with both pairings of screenshots, so we're going to get to see the end screens after all. So big thank you to him. So let's take a look. The Mongolians did so much damage. That general's bodyguard with 400 kills, that is so impressive. His Tabaugor did reasonably well. You know, some of them did okay, and others really made up for the lack of performance, especially with this one here with 33 units. This one unit of infantry getting almost 300 kills, and still look how healthy they are at the end of that. That's so crazy. These are the Persians here that did pretty respectable. That's not bad for spearmen at all. Luckily for them, they were managing to fight a lot of tier 1 infantry, which I think probably facilitated that high score. Their cavalry did reasonably well. Their elephants did okay, 110. You know, that's not too bad at all. And some of their Turco-Mongol footmen getting a large number of kills as well. So the Mongolians really were able to do a lot of work, especially their horse archers. I mean, it shows here that they have low kills except for the heavy archers, but a lot of those are heavy cavalry. That was so much of the Saxon cavalry included in these casualties that's it was almost crippling, I think, for the Saxon force. Over on the Saxon side of things, their Landwehr did very well, as I expected them to. They are very, very good heavy infantry. The only thing they're really vulnerable to is missile fire, because they are a little bit more lightly armored, I think, than some of the later period halberdmen. But they're quite inexpensive and very good for what they cost. The rest of his infantry kind of just doing okay. I think this is like the tier 2, rather, Ausodna, doing all right. The tier 3 is more than making up for it, though, almost getting 100 kills apiece. This one getting 203. Really, really good. And their archer units did actually quite well as well. And I think these are some more halberd units here as well. Moving on now to the Genoa Bohemia pairing, which is kind of like opposite ends of the field. The Bohemians did okay. Their general got a lot of kills. He was really involved in the fighting, but unfortunately he ended up being gunned down, I think, by the Mongols. Their halberdmen all did really well, except for this one unit here. 88 kills is a little bit disappointing for a tier 3 halberd unit. The sergeants didn't do nearly as bad as I thought they would. Some of them, 144 kills here, 71 kills there. But others, 15 kills, 25 kills. It's kind of the danger of taking tier 1 infantry. They are very unreliable. The macemen doing really good on one end and not great on the other. And I think these are some of their archer units as well. So their archer companies really did a lot of work, especially these rapid-firing heavy bowmen. Some of their Pavis doing okay, but these two units right here just kind of doing abysmally. Their cavalry did reasonably well as well. Those late period Bohemian Knights got a ton of kills. That one almost getting 300, more than makes up for some of the poorer performances in the other portions of their army, like in these crossbows, for example. So yeah, it was a great battle. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see the ending, I think, as it was supposed to be. But the rest of the battle was just, it was so good, and there was a lot of really good tactics employed, and some lessons to be learned that I thought I would post it anyway. So big thank you to Blood Magpie for sending it in to me. He has sent me another one, which you guys will be seeing very, very shortly. But coming up after this, I think there's going to be some Third Age, and I also wanted to take a moment to apologize for not being too active over the last week. I had a lot of family coming down to visit, so I wanted to spend some time with them. That being said, I have not been unactive, or disactive, I don't know. Inactive? That's the one. Inactive over the last week. I have actually got a replay posted on the official Total War Center YouTube channel. That is the Battle of Velbaj, which is a really great battle. So if you guys haven't seen that, I recommend you check it out on my channel and go ahead and take a look at the Total War Center channel as well. They have a really cool system, and they upload a lot of content from people in the Total War community. So if you're hungry for some more Total War content, obviously go and check that out. And of course, speaking of, the Third Aged official Reforged channel has uploaded a replay as well. They just uploaded one of mine. It is an FFA on Osgiliath, which I've never seen before. I've never done an FFA on Osgiliath, and it's a really great battle. A lot of interesting tactics, and something of a surprise ending, which I think you guys will appreciate as well. But yeah, that's it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in our next battle. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye!